Hello everyone, Chris back again with you in Gaming Zone. Yes, today I'm here with a sad hair version of myself. The previous tier list, how it ended with all of those Frostbite titles being thrown in the trash section, really changed a lot my attitude when it comes to the DLC tier lists. Yes everyone, as I promised, this is the second part of our tier list videos. Today I'm going to rate the DLCs, updates and expansions for the Battlefield franchise games. I prepared every single DLC as with the previous version, but this time without all of those launch things. Today I'm going to rate them as they have released and also feature in the final retail version which you see in the games. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So everyone, I've prepared every single DLC, update, and even expansion pack, booster pack, whatever you want to call them. I prepared every single one in this tier list video so I could rate them because this is of course my personal opinions on them. Well anyway, I've prepared basically every single one, starting with 1942. Yes, even the first game had updates, and ending up with 2042, which was the most pathetic update cycle I've seen ever for a game. And I've seen worse with Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. 2042 managed to be even worse. Well, let's not spoil everything and let's just jump straight into it and let's rate those things. So everyone, here it is, the tier list which I've prepared. Once again, as you can see, we are starting from 1942 and ending up with 2042. Man, actually it's been just 100 years worth of jump since between these titles. Yeah, that's quite the funny. Well anyway, let's start off with Battlefield 1942 Road to Rome. For this thing, honestly, I'm going to throw it once again in great. Alongside the new maps, they also added new vehicles, new weapons, basically everything you wanted for an expansion pack. That's why I rate it at great, although I wanted to see more out of it, but again it says Road to Rome, and it's an expansion pack. Back in those days, it was the best thing you could get. That's why I'm going to throw it at great. So here's a... Told you to do that to me. Here's a family-friendly flag. Also, is it me or am I without health? Next one is called Battlefield 1942 Secret Weapons of World War II. This one is mostly a meme, I'm going to be honest with you, cause it has jetpacks, it has weird jets, the maps are like straight up from GoldenEye, it's like one of those experimental DLCs, experimental updates for the title itself. Honestly, I'm going to throw it at good. I expected a lot more out of it, cause, you know, last time we had new factions introduced, new weapons, new vehicles, yes. But I expected, at least some interesting factions, like, let's say, the big boys in the Germany, which unfortunately I can't call it. Honestly, this one was made mostly for memes, it doesn't really, follow historical accuracy, but it works better than Battlefield V with all that nonsense related to, political pandering. Yeah, that title is really awful. Honestly, I'm already starting to rant over Battlefield 5, so I'm going to wrap it up here and move on to the next one. Right, let's check some comments. Oh, yes. All of them just triggered when they saw this pilot. What the hell is this? Ah, yes, Battlefield 2. Let's talk about Battlefield 2 Special Forces. Honestly, let's just straight up take it and drop it in peak tier. This DLC, this expansion pack is amazing. It gave you night vision, it gave you new factions, new maps. This one basically took Battlefield 2's gameplay and completely changed it. This gameplay on Special Forces is truly awesome. It's the first one which had night vision, the first one with night maps, with cool gadgets. Basically a lot of interesting stuff which happened here. Unfortunately, this expansion pack had a lot of cut content. They planned to do underwater events, you could swim underwater, just like Battlefield 4. And also some rifles, some gadgets which were exclusively underwater. Still, this expansion pack is amazing, I can't really hate it, it's decent, it has fun gameplay, fun weapons, fun factions, and it's been used basically for every single mod which has been created for Battlefield 2. Evening. Uh-oh. APC? Come on. Oh, no. No. Fine. Moving on, we have Battlefield 2 Euroforce, the expansion pack which introduced European faction in the game. Honestly, I'm just going to rate it as good. I know I might get a bit of hate for this one, but honestly it was kinda disappointing, this one. It introduced, yes, the European faction to the game, but unfortunately it was paid at first. Afterwards they were made for free, but still, I consider it as a bit of a drawback. Basically this thing had lower amount of content, it just had the European faction and new vehicles. Also the maps on this one only have 32 players, there is no 64 layout. Also some of them are quite uninspired, for example Great Wall, Operation Smokescreen. With the Chinese faction it's only one map, with the Middle Eastern Coalition it's only two, I think. So it's quite a disappointment, they are really low in amount, that's why I'm going to throw it at good. Same thing I would like to say about Battlefield 2 Armored Fury, I'm also going to throw it in the good section. Why so? Yes, the maps now have 64 player locations on them, but it's mostly vehicles and new locations introduced, everything else is like pretty sparse. So once again, these booster packs are good. I can't say these are like special forces where the gameplay is changed drastically, we have night maps, night vision, special forces, so on. These ones are mostly just like, additions to the base game, so it doesn't feel less empty, let's say. Well, that's it for Battlefield 2. Unfortunately the booster packs are in the good category, but still, these are decent, it gives you fun gameplay, and honestly after these have been made for free, I have no gripes for them. So that's the rating for these two packs. Oh, here they are. Is that a tank? Man, I love how this game keeps deploying everything on me. I think he's dead. Oh, no. Let's fire just in case. Moving on, now we have the final booster pack for the Refractor Engine era games of Battlefield franchise, and of course is 2142 Battlefield. It's the Northern Strike expansion pack. Honestly oh wait, it's booster pack. Honestly I'm going to throw it in average, this one was really low in amount, it gave you 3 new locations, I think it was Bridge at Remagen, which is used in basically every single Battlefield 2 mod, which I've played, the asset flips. They introduced some new weapons, a new custom game mode, but that's basically it, like not a lot of changes, not a lot of new introduction. I thought that it would introduce boats with this thing again, cause in 2142 you don't have boats. Sadly that never happened. They introduced some new weapons I suppose, but that's basically it, just some new maps, some new content let's say, then afterwards it was made for free with the final patch of the game. Honestly, this one is average, like, I don't remember a lot of details about it, unlike Euro Forces, unlike Armored Fury, this one is quite disappointing. Well, anyway, it's still content, I can't really hate it, that's why I'm going to throw it in the average category. Don't get me wrong, it's not subpar, cause those two tiers below they're absolute garbage, and we're gonna have some entries in that. Anyway, this is it for the Refractor Engine games, let's move on to the Frostbite ones. Oops, sorry. Oh, should I even comment on this one? Let's actually just take it like this and throw it in peak tier. Battlefield Bad Company Vietnam is honestly amazing. This DLC, unlike Battlefield 2 Special Forces, which yes, it's still in peak tier, Vietnam actually introduces new era, introduces new vehicles, new weapons, new factions. Basically, unlike Bad Company 2, the standard multiplayer which has Russia versus United States, the generic multiplayer which DICE is known for in the Frostbite engine, it actually takes place in Vietnam itself, like everything. The DLC itself is a completely separate experience compared to the base game. It has basically amazing gameplay, I really love the maps on this thing, I love the weapons, the atmosphere, basically everything. That's why it's automatically thrown in S tier, I won't even bother to discuss this, it's a good DLC which I really enjoyed. Next up in line we have Battlefield 3's DLCs. Now we completely transition from expansion packs and booster packs into actual DLCs. So let's start off with Battlefield 3 Back to Karkand. Honestly, I'm going to throw it into the great category. Why it is great? Well, it has basically remakes from Battlefield 2 maps, the popular ones have been remade in the Frostbite engine. But unfortunately these have been cut out in scope and have been downgraded when it comes to visuals. Yes, you might say, wait a second, why do you say downgrade in visuals? Well, Battlefield 3 unfortunately is known for its blue filter, and Back to Karkand maps have been absolutely butchered by the blue filter. There is no Middle Eastern coalition, there is no original soundtracks, basically all of the soundtracks from Back to Karkand are straight up from Battlefield 3. There are no new remakes for Battlefield 2 songs, which is quite disappointing. But once again, it's a good DLC, you could have a lot of fun. Sadly can't say a lot about Wake Island, honestly Wake Island was quite a weak remaster. I honestly expected it to be better, to have more buildings placed on it, but we'll go with what we have. Close Quarters. Man, I'm not even going to comment, this DLC is amazing. For Battlefield 3 this DLC was incredible. Basically this one focused solely on infantry gameplay and introduced maps exclusively with domination and team deathmatch in mind. This one is amazing, even though it has some drawbacks when it comes to layout. Sometimes the maps are straight up like a maze when you go through them. Destroyed factories, a sky tower which was like, you know, a VIP hotel. Honestly, it was really cool to play this one. The weapons also were great, unfortunately no new vehicles, cause of course this is infantry focused only. Still, this is a very good DLC which I really enjoyed, that's why it belongs in the peak tier. It's a really good expansion pack. Armored Kill honestly was one of those DLCs which were basically for the looks, but gameplay wise it was, let's say, mediocre at best. So I'm just going to take this DLC and throw it into average. Unfortunately, these maps haven't been really thought out to have also infantry gameplay happen on them. So if you're playing as infantry in these maps, yeah, good luck trying to survive every single vehicle and every single sniper on the location. Honestly, you are just straight up required to place a sniper to survive on Armored Kill maps. I'm going to shut up about Bandar Desert. This is where DICE basically started making big maps just to have big maps. With this DLC have been introduced new content when it comes to vehicles, new unlocks, new paints, basically everything which the vehicle players wanted is available in this DLC. Unfortunately for infantry players, yeah, good luck trying to survive this thing. At least you got the AC-130, which basically blows up everything, which was quite cool, let's be honest. Aftermath. Once again, I'm going to pick this one out and throw it in peak tier. Why so? Basically it takes the experience of Battlefield 3 and completely changes it. We have Aftermath locations which are basically following closely the single player campaign. In the campaign you have an earthquake, which basically destroys like half of the location, everything is in ruins there. And the locations featured in Aftermath are exactly the aftermath of what happened with those maps. And while playing you can even see tremors happening on the location, which is quite cool. We got new vehicles, we got new soldier skins, we got new camos. Unfortunately it's only X-bow when it comes to weapons, but still, it's quite cool, we have now a bow available in this thing. I really like this DLC, and sadly this is going to be the last one which actually features really good map design. Afterwards, basically the map design went crazy and did whatever the hell they wanted. And wrapping up our tier list for Battlefield 3 DLCs is Battlefield 3 Endgame. And I think I'm going to throw it into average still. The map design on this one basically went absolutely crazy. Unfortunately, these started to be mostly for the looks. Playing Kiasar Railroad is misery. Same thing with Nebandan Flats, same thing with Sabalan Pipe. Yeah, these maps are made for looks. I know it has the weather, you know, the season theme on them, but honestly the gameplay is absolute garbage. No new weapons have been introduced. At least we got some game modes. They capture the flag, air superiority, all of that stuff. For me personally it was a disappointment. I expected a lot better out of DICE on this one. And they ended up Battlefield 3 on a quite weak note with weak maps, no new weapons. Yeah, at least we got the new seasons, which was quite cool, but everything else is like under question. Nothing can replace this game for me, and it will remain forever in my gaming story as the starting point of my gaming career. I hope you like this story and throwback. I'm not even going to add something else. Moving on, we now cover Battlefield 4 and its DLCs. Starting off we have China Rising, which came at launch with Battlefield 4. I'm going to just take it right here and throw it into subpar. China Rising has probably the worst maps I've played, except of course the upcoming ones, which I'm going to count. Yeah, this one is subpar. I guess weapons are quite cool, but the assignments are absolute grind fest. Unlocking the UCAV, unlocking the L85, this one is pain. I don't know why the assignments for the first DLC are so grindy. It even had cut out content. They had planned the evolutions for this thing to happen. We had snowstorms, sandstorms, just like Oman. It doesn't really save it, the fact that it even had Battlefield 3 content taken in it. Of course, the road bikes, the dirt bikes, have been taken from Battlefield 3 and added in Battlefield 4. Yep, just live on with that information, the fact that even Battlefield 3 endgame content was recycled in China Rising. Second Assault, once again I'm going to throw it into the good category. I can't say it's like Battlefield 3 back to Karkand, because Battlefield 4 basically took existing assets from Battlefield 3, because it's already made in Frostbite. They basically took those assets, remastered them and introduced them in Frostbite 3. Honestly, it was a cool idea to have Operation Metro actually take place after the nuke blew up in Battlefield 3's campaign. Gulf Oman sadly is an uninspired remake. They just threw a sandstorm there, upgraded some textures and visuals, and that's it. The requirements for weapons also haven't been reduced, they are no longer insane, although Gold Magnum is quite an annoying thing to unlock. New vehicles, I guess that's a positive thing, and also camos and assignments. Yeah, this one is quite good, but unfortunately it's lower in scope compared to Back to Karkand. I wanted more out of it, but it is what it is. Naval Strike, man, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get hate for this, but still, I'm going to throw it into subpar. The assignment for this thing were honestly disappointing, the maps were disappointing, it's basically just, as I said, a rock with sea covering it. There are some objectives which you could play. In Wavebreaker you have 3 objectives, but there's also a Nansha Strike, which is basically remote islands and you have to travel via boat to try to capture them. And of course attack boats are just waiting for you to come with the small boat or the jet ski, so they could just blow you up. Yeah, this one personally for me is subpar, and even though I enjoy playing as sea vehicles, I've played a lot using the attack boats, I'm not a fan of this one. I guess the old cannon is a feature, it's a static weapon which you could use, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, this DLC is subpar, I'm not a fan of this one. Now, Dragon's Teeth is actually the first and I think the last DLC, which is actually great. This one once again focused on urban conflict. Unlike Close Quarters, which was basically infantry focused only, the blend of gameplay on these locations are honestly great. We got good weapons, we got good vehicles, we got interesting takes on Levolution, and so on. The Levolution on these maps are actually quite cool, except I think Pearl Market. Pearl Market had that Evolution plan, but it was cut out from the final game. The weapons are good, the locations introduced are cool, new gadgets, for example the Roar, which was also interesting to try it out. This DLC is great for Battlefield 4, and sadly I think it's the last one which was also great, because everything else was, let's say, average or subpar. Final Stand, honestly, once again I'm going to throw it into average. Final Stand is where map design started to take a nosedive, and it actually went even worse, starting with Battlefield 1. Honestly, this DLC was quite disappointing, no new weapons have been introduced, just some assignments, which are quite grindy, to unlock skins, some dog tags, some secret dog tags, the Phantom program and all that stuff. But we also have doozies like Giants of Karelia, which it's misery. Like, playing on that thing is misery. I think only having bot support on that location would actually save its gameplay. Everything else, it's playable, but as I said, it depends, honestly. That's why this DLC, the final DLC for Battlefield 4, is throwing into average category. Same thing I would like to say about Zavod Graveyard Shift. Graveyard Shift, honestly, I was quite hyped to have this one come out, but it's basically the map itself just converted at night, no new updates for it, no new layout changes, it's basically the same thing, just taken and upgraded to the night setting so you could have, covert operations. I thought they would change some gameplay elements, for example, Infiltration of Shanghai, which was cancelled unfortunately, had different layout compared to Siege of Shanghai, but sadly for Zavod it's only this. They even made 2 night maps, there was also Infiltration of Shanghai and the Gold Mode Night. Unfortunately those didn't make it and those were cancelled. I honestly expected to have 4 maps in this night pack, but unfortunately I don't get that, so it's only Zavod, which was quite a disappointment. Operation Outbreak, I'm just going to throw it straight into subpar, there's no need to comment on this one, you already know the deal. Outbreak honestly is average, I'd say even subpar in some moments, like the gameplay on that map is absolutely pathetic, so I'm not even going to bother to cover it. Legacy Operations. I'm going to throw this one in good, cause honestly it was a good map. It's Dragon Valley from Battlefield 2, remake it in Battlefield 4, which is a faithful remake, introduced it in the game and even took the No Share Canals TDM thing and created a special zone in it so the TDM players could have a blast in it. And of course we even added one more control point, cause in Battlefield 2 this map is giant, it has a lot of control points. This one it was sadly cut a bit as well, but still the gameplay flow is quite great, the remake is awesome, the gameplay loop when it comes to the shrine section is great, and everything else when it comes to vehicles is also great. And of course we got the TDM layout, which is cool. For a final update for Battlefield 4, this one is good, and here are the list when it comes to the DLC for Battlefield 4.
Do you honestly think you're funny?
Moving on, we have Battlefield 1, and as you might know from my previous tier list, I've thrown this one into trash and subpar categories. So starting off we have Battlefield 1 VF Range DLC, which is called They Shall Not Pass. This one honestly is quite decent, I really liked it, but it sadly came late at the development of Battlefield 1. I'm going to throw it right here in a good category. The first DLC for Battlefield 1 honestly was good. It also introduced 6 maps. Don't forget, this one also had an update which introduced night maps into Battlefield 1. Those were made for free, but still, it's content which is related to the French DLC. It basically introduced the French faction, it introduced a new behemoth, new weapons, new interesting assignments for it, and of course maps. The map design is where Battlefield 1 started to fall just off a cliff. The map design is absolute garbage, and unfortunately this DLC is afflicted with those bad map designs. Still, there are some which are quite interesting, for example Prisée de Tailleur, which has good gameplay flow in it. Honestly, it reminds me a bit of a Grand Bazaar, but I'd say the worst version of it. Still has good cover, which you could have some fun playing in it. Overall, the first DLC for Battlefield 1 was decent, I can't really hate it, that's why I'm going to throw it into the good category. Following up we have Battlefield 1 in the name of its Tsar. Honestly, I'm going to throw this one in good as well. Although the map design once again is very questionable. We got new weapons, we got new vehicles. Ilya Muromets, man, I still hate that thing. Yeah, I'm already stuttering, it just brings me flashbacks to how bad that thing was. But once again, vehicles are cool, they introduce new vehicles, they introduce new weapons, the locations, new factions. We got the Russian faction alongside, you know, the revolution stuff from 1919. The DLC is still good, unfortunately no new behemoths on this one. Nonetheless, it's a good experience, it introduced new content, it introduced new takes, new factions and so on, which is quite good, and unfortunately I can't say a lot about the upcoming ones which I'm going to talk about. Next up we have, I think, our first failure, which is Turning Tides. I'm just going to throw it in trash, this thing is absolutely garbage. We got Tachibaba, which honestly I think is the best map when it comes to Battlefield 1, even though it's just a hill. It's still a good gameplay experience, but then we got Heligoland Bight, which is the biggest tragedy I've ever seen. As I've said, it's just a rock with sea. We got some new weapons, we got a new faction, which is the Marine Corps, but everything else, like, yeah, it's L-class destroyer. The Heligoland Bight I guess has a behemoth spawn already at start, which is basically showing off the huge combat thing. But the infantry experience on this thing is misery. I think Zeebrugge Raid and Akibaba is the only ones which are quite decent when it comes to the gameplay. Cape Hells is just misery, I just want to forget that thing exists. Same thing with Heligoland Bight. Honestly, this is the first DLC where it turned into a bad experience and I really hate this one. I don't enjoy any single moment of this thing, except Akibaba where you could actually have some good gameplay loops. Everything else is garbage which I want to forget. And wrapping up, we have Battlefield 1 Apocalypse, which I am going to throw into average section. The skins are questionable, some of them look strange, the maps are really bad designed. I remember when this DLC dropped, the performance issues were absolutely insane. I had a lot of stutters on Passchendaele. Somme is quite decent, I can't really hate on that, and the Passchendaele is quite great. The other two maps, which are called Razor's Edge or London, I don't even remember those things, cause they are locked to air superiority only. I can't really call them maps, cause it's basically just a skybox with PNGs set of a city, and you just use the planes to fight, and there is also the other game mode which you have the Zeppelin thing and you just fight planes. Yeah, this DLC is honestly weak, it still gave us weapons, the theme is quite cool, but when it came to gameplay loop, honestly it was a disappointment. I expected a lot more out of the final DLC, and sadly this is where things started to fall apart because Battlefield 5 was coming, they needed a lot of help when it came to that, so they basically just quickly rushed out this thing at the door, so they could have the whole team work on Battlefield 5.
Get the f*** out of here.
Moving on to the last two titles, we have the live service coverage, the free updates for the games. Honestly, I'm just going to do lightning rounds for these things, cause honestly, most of them are just a disappointment. First one, Lightning Strikes. Once again, I'm going to just throw it in subpar. It basically fixed the campaign for this thing, it added the missing content. A couple of weapons, unfortunately from Battlefield 1, this is where the copy pasta really started to kick in. And also we had the Twisted Storm, which I think is one of the worst maps Battlefield 5 ever had. It's just an empty field where you just run as infantry, it's mostly optimized for vehicles, for infantry it's just garbage. Moving on, we have Lightning Round. Lightning Round, I'm just going to throw it in trash, I don't even want to discuss this thing, it's honestly pathetic. Firestorm, this is where the Battle Royale was introduced to this thing. And I think there was also a new map which was introduced, but honestly I don't care anymore. I barely played Battlefield 5, as you might know me, I'm not a huge fan of this game. Firestorm, I've tried to play this thing and honestly it was just a disappointment. I'm just going to throw it into subpar. Subpar, honestly I think it just fits. They tried to create something with Firestorm, it failed, they introduced some new weapons, but once again copy pasta instead of the original one. Sadly, Battlefield 5's support is honestly mediocre at best. Same thing I would like to say about Defying the Odds. Honestly, I barely remember this thing, but I know for sure there are some maps which have tons of issues when it comes to visuals, some problems with the weapons. They started doing the TTK issues, tons of issues when it came to visibility, you could barely see the soldiers on it. Yeah, I've seen some reviews of other people and honestly they say like all of these maps are quite mediocre, except I think some of those which have been introduced later down the line. Pacific. Honestly, I'm just going to take this thing and throw it into average. Why average? You know, I was praising like, look, this is how Battlefield 5 was supposed to be, but instead we got Battlefield V. Pacific was average because the maps are still garbage. I think only Iwo Jima in Breakthrough was quite decent, everything else was questionable. Wake Island, yes, it was a cool remake, but still not a lot of coverage when it came to it. Pacific Storm is just emptiness, I barely remember that thing, it was sad. And everything else is, yeah, just some skins and stuff like that. Quite disappointing. And we are going to wrap up with these two updates. First one I'm going to cover, this one is I think Into the Jungle, it's not even worth covering, this one is trash. It introduced a single map, some new skins, some new weapons, and that is it. Pretty much this is the whole update for it. Some of them have been copy pasta once again, like weapons don't really change a lot. And I'm going to wrap up with a summer update, which, man, I don't even know how to classify this thing, I never played it. Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure how I can even say this. I think I'm going to throw it into subpar, because at least it introduced two new maps, which were from the cancelled game mode, the esport title, which was cancelled, and the remaining assets were simply introduced via summer update. Yeah, Battlefield 5's whole update cycle was garbage. EA actually had the chance to fix this game, turn the ship around and create a good game just like Battlefield 4. At launch it was garbage, but with patches it actually became a great game. Electronic Arts decided, you know what, that's it, we are going to create something good, drop an update which was mid, then cancel the support and that's it. No Russian team for you, nothing when it comes to Eastern Front. We're gonna cover the experimental stories and that's it. We kinda pandered into politics and that is it, no mainstream coverage. Seeing the next title, which is even worse than this thing. Ever since 2018, the day I witnessed that pathetic reveal for Battlefield V, the scripted event featuring that late night show Cringelord, the abysmal reveal trailer, and of course the drama that surrounded this game, I knew it would flop. This garbage ending in such a tone shouldn't surprise anyone, and honestly said, is deserved. 2042. Yeah, I should just do the same thing with Battlefield 5. I'm just going to take this right here, you right here. You actually are subpar, so I'm going to give it right there. This one I don't even remember, unfortunately, and there is a New Dawn, which I'm going to throw it into subpar again. This was a lightning round, honestly. The update cycle starting from Season 1 and ending, I think it's New Dawn is Season 5. Only Season 3 and Season 5 are actually subpar, cause they introduced new maps, but everything else was basically just taken content from Portal, introduced into the main game, some new assignments, some new skins, but that's worthless dog shit, I'm going to be real with you. We want content, we want new weapons, we want new maps, and 2042 only gave a single map per season. A single map per season. This is just straight up shameful. I can't even describe how shameful it is. Oh, Dark Rations. You also go, cause your map is quite decent, I really want to throw you into average, but I'm going to still throw you to subpar. 2042 just gives me incredible rage when it comes to content support to its basic gameplay features. 0 hour is 0 content, Master of Arms gave you a single map, that is it, 11th hour the same thing. They introduced classes system back again with Season 3 I think, or even Season 4. Honestly I don't care and I don't give a shit even. Half of the seasons are in trash, half of the seasons are in subpar. And that leaves us with a turning point, which is the final update for 2042. This is where the game actually started showing some potential. It introduced maps which were basically taken ideas from Bad Company, but I can't praise them. Because the other one is basically Bad Company, which is a new map. The other one is Stadium from Hourglass, which is basically just taking the stadium itself, just made a map around that and that's it. It's basically reusing the same assets. No, I'm just going to throw this thing into subpar. The whole 2042 experience was absolute garbage. Like, the update cycle for Battlefield 5 was at least showing glimmers of hopes. For 2042 they basically straight up gave up. They just gave up at creating content. This truly was a speedrun and it came to Battlefield 5 and 2042. These two titles are the most pathetic way you could support Battlefield. As you can see, we have a lot of good DLCs when it came to Battlefield. Even booster packs were better than the updates I've seen in Battlefield 5 and 2042. I can't even praise DICE at this point. I should just start ranting about how bad the support is. A single map for each season, which drops like every 3 months, is absolutely pathetic. I can't even describe how pathetic this is. Season 7, which introduced 2 new maps, one was original, the other was basically just a rip from existing assets and creating it as a standalone feature. Yeah, this is straight up disappointing. Please don't buy this trash until some serious patches are dropped by the studio. Do not waste $60 or $70 on this broken game, everyone, unless you want to experience frustration, anger, or just love how bad everything works with those no-pilot conflicts. So wrapping up everybody, here we go again. We have the peak with Battlefield 2 Special Forces, we have Bad Company Vietnam, Close Quarters and Aftermath. These are the peak DLCs for Battlefield, which honestly is well deserved. Special Forces is amazing, Vietnam the same with the era, Close Quarters having really cool gameplay features, and Aftermath with its unique take when it comes to post-gameplay, post-campaign stuff happening in multiplayer. And here we go with the trash tier. We got Turning Tides for Battlefield 1, the first true failure when it comes to DLCs, then followed by Lightning Strikes, Into the Jungle, 0 Hour, or as I like to call it, zero content, and the other stuff for 2042 like 11th Hour and Master of Arms. I know I might get some hate for these, but honestly 2042's whole support is absolute trash. Like, I simply can't stress enough how bad the support is for this thing. That's why like basically half of the things, even the entirety of 2042 is subpar. That's how bad these things are. At least Battlefield 1 showed some good updates, for example In the Name of the Tsar, also the French DLC, but everything else Yeah, disappointment. Well, that is it everyone, this is my DLC tier list for Battlefield. Now we have a complete collection, now I have reviewed and also tier listed the whole Battlefield games and the DLCs as well. I hope you enjoyed my take on these DLCs and also the games. I know most of these are quite controversial, that's why I would like to know your opinions about these DLCs and also the games themselves in the comments below. I'll be reading them and actually talk to you and see what are your thoughts about the DLCs. Maybe I missed some points here and there, who knows. You might be there correcting me and actually fixing some of the problems which happened in this video. Well, that is it everyone, thank you for tuning in these tier lists. Let me know if you'd like to see more content like this. I know it kinda looks lazy cause you know it's just me turning on the camera and just yapping. But actually it's quite hard to edit these things. I edited the first one I think in about 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. It was quite a long thing to edit. Because you know it does take some time to have the footage and all of that aligned. Well, that's enough with my yapping. I hope you enjoyed this one everyone. If you enjoyed this, remember to throw a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more content like this, remember to click the subscribe button, so you can have my content appear in your subscription boxes. That is it everyone, Sad Chris has done his yapping. Thank you for watching, this was Chris, see you in the gaming zone.